Hey y'all, welcome back to VW Family Farm. This video is a bit different. We're gonna show you a problem we've encountered. So this video is going to be us harvesting honey from our honeybees, but it's not gonna be your typical video. This is not just a vlog of showing us doing this or whatever. We're gonna show you something that we've been dealing with for a couple years now. What I wanna show you is how to avoid this, if you can. This is crystallized honey. As you can see, it's lighter in color. It's basically turned to sugar. It's not liquid anymore. What we want to do is show you guys how to, instead of having that problem, wind up with this as your result. Beautiful liquid honey, especially if you are wanting to have your honey raw to preserve all the health benefits you can. Maybe you're selling it, whatever the case may be. You don't want to sell crystallized honey. There's uses for it. You can use it as a starter for whipped honey and different things, but I don't know about you, I don't want my entire batch of honey to be crystallized. So let's get started. Okay, isn't this cute? We're over here. We actually only have a couple beehives here at the house. All of our bees are in our county. They're in close proximity, but they're not all right here at our house, which is actually pretty good because if you can see right over there, there's our market. And this is kind of their flight path, so it's okay that they're not all right here, but we saved one here because we wanted to show you guys this. If you are trying to avoid crystallized honey or honey problems in general, it really starts at the hive when you decide whether or not you're ready to harvest your honey. So Ben knows a whole lot more about this than I do. He's going to kind of talk us through what he's looking for to see if the honey is ready for us to take it and harvest it, and how much we're taking and all the things.
So I'm going to give the hive just a little bit of smoke, kind of calm them down a little bit. Give them a little smoke up top. Woo, that's beautiful. So what this is a fume board. I spray some kind of cherry smelling beast stuff on there that they don't really like it. So what it does is it pushes them down to get away from that smell. You gotta give it a little while, and the sun's not quite up there yet, but the sun is supposed to heat the top of this to make that the fumes of that stronger, and that will push them down. But we'll just give it a little bit, because something else I need to do over here is I've got a nuke box here from a swarm. I need to transfer them over into a full hive real quick, so I'm gonna do that while this is working.
While he's doing that, let me just say a couple things. Ben gets messages quite regularly about bees, people wanting to come learn and all those things. And hopefully one day we've talked about having some classes. We really hope to do that. We've not pulled that off yet. But if you're wanting bees, you're desiring to get into bees, really it's kind of one of those things. Get you some equipment and then get started, and you kind of learn as you go. You're gonna encounter problems just like with any other farm animal. You're not going to learn everything there is to know until you kind of get in there and get your hands in it and start doing it. Ben did have a few people that when he encountered something he couldn't figure out, he could call. But a lot of what he learned here on YouTube. We have bee videos, we have bee playlists. There's a lot of channels that do. They're not necessarily the videos that people put out and then just take off right off the bat. But they're those videos that have good content. There's so much you can go and watch that's good educational content. And that's what bee videos are to me. There's really no way to make them like dramatic and like super duper exciting, but there's so much good information out in the form of YouTube videos if you're wanting to start bees. You can almost learn everything about bees on YouTube. So I would say don't be afraid of it. Just jump in there and get started. And also another thing, Ben spent a lot of time on bees when he first started. In fact, he worried about them. He lost sleep over them. He wanted to do it all right and all those things. But over the course of time, he's kind of relaxed. And yes, if you don't pay a lot of attention to them, they could leave, they could get problems. But I don't think we give bees enough credit that they can take care of themselves. You're trying to give them optimum conditions because you want to keep them in your hives, but they also are self-sufficient. I mean, they wouldn't have survived this long if they weren't. So it's not something you have to be super stressed over. It should be enjoyable. Yes, it's work, but it should be an enjoyable work. All right, that's my pep talk for today. Okay, so Ben got the stuff on the fume board from Central Beekeeper Supply. It's here in Central Arkansas. You can get it from Man Lake online, and there's different forms of what you can use, more natural ones, and so we think they're down. He's going to go ahead and take it from here. I
always run queen excluders on my honey supers, just because I don't want the queen up in there laying. I want clean looking comb, and I don't want no larvae in there when I'm getting ready to harvest. And looks like I'm gonna have to buy a new box.
Yeah, you're digging into that.
They got it glued down real good. So they didn't all come out, as you see. There's still a few coming out, but what I'm gonna do is set it off here, get it in the direct sunlight, get this thing warmed up. And these are forager bees that brings the honey in, so they know right where their hive is. They'll go right back to it.
So here we are in our garage. We're about to harvest this honey. One thing that people run across and do wrong, this doesn't necessarily make it crystallize, but Ben was telling me it makes it ferment. So that's a bad problem too, is not having their honey ready to be harvested. So Ben's gonna tell us a little bit about that.
So when there's two ways to do it, in my opinion. You can either buy a device that tells you how much moisture is left in the honey, or you can go by rule of thumb on a frame. If it is 80% or greater capped, that is all of this, that means it's dry enough that you can harvest.
So he's gonna try to show you one that would not be ready. The one you saw obviously it was like 100% capped, but like he said, you're looking for 80%. So it doesn't have to be 100 like he just showed you, but the bees are very, very intelligent. They take care of themselves. They really don't need our help, but we're super thankful for them. But if they don't cap it, there's a reason. They're only gonna cap it if the moisture content is right and all the things are right. They're not going to cap it if it's not ready.
Well, I was gonna say that generally speaking, on the outside of the honey super is gonna be your less capped frames, but even this one, I mean, it's like 98, 99. There's a few that's not capped, but both sides of it, there's the lacking part of not capped. So I'm saying this frame is 95% capped.
So we're gonna get busy. If we run across one like what we're talking about that's iffy or that definitely doesn't need to be slung in the honey slinger, we'll show it to you guys as we go along. That does happen. We bring a super home and we harvest most of the frames, but then there's a frame or two that we're like, yeah, we're not putting that in there. So we just put that, you know, over with the ones that we do sling, and it'll just go back to the bees. Okay, before we get a bunch of hateful comments about how Ben is cutting off the cappings, let me just say we have done this a long time. We've tried multiple different ways. He's actually using a little tool over there right now that looks like what I would use as a pick when I had my hair permed back in the 90s, but it's actually pulling the caps off. So we've done that. We've used a heated knife. I don't know, Ben, what all have we used? Pretty much everything out there, right?
Right.
But
they've got a roller with spikes on it that
yeah,
kind of pokes holes in it, but then a lot of the wax, you'll sling that out and it'll clog your filters up.
Right, so I hope y'all could hear what he was saying. But we've tried them all. They all have pros and cons. This is just the way that we've settled on it. It seems like the way we've done it the most. And a lot of people will be like, well, that looks so wasteful. You're cutting off so much, blah, blah, blah. What we do is that container he's cutting that into, we will actually let that strain and drip as well. And we will get almost all of the honey out of that. And then we're left with the wax.
So we'll dump it out of here over into this, and you can see it's got little holes in the bottom of it. and it will drain out of this one into the bottom one down here, and then we'll drain the honey out.
Yep. So that's just a little homemade, that was cheap, just little like Rubbermaid totes that you can get anywhere, Walmart, the dollar store, whatever. He just drilled a hole, and then you can get those little spouts he was showing you at any bee supply place online or most bee supply stores. So we're gonna get to slinging, and we will tell you a little bit later on what we're doing and kind of walk you through what we're doing. So maybe you can learn something new from this process. So if you're harvesting honey for the first time and you're trying to guesstimate how much your honey super will turn off, so if all of your frames are full, and we are running a 10 frame, and this is a shallow honey super, you can get mediums, and I mean, you could use a deep box, I guess, that would be very heavy, but if you're using a shallow super like we are, each frame will turn off a quart. So if you're running 10 frames, 4 quarts to a gallon, that's 2.5 gallons for a shallow honey super.
So this right here is a frame that I wouldn't harvest. This side is questionable about your 75, 80%. But that side right there, I would call more like 50%. So that's one. We're just gonna put it back in the box, give it back to the bees.
So just a couple cool facts about bees. One worker bee will gather the nectar in her entire life to produce about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in her entire life. And just think about a pint of honey. It takes over 1,100 bees to gather enough nectar and pollen to produce that. And that's not to mention all the other bees in the hive that do various jobs like building comb, protecting, all the things like that. So there can be tens of thousands of bees in every hive. I think it's something that we take for granted, the work bees do and all the things bees do for us. You think about all the things we eat and you think, well, I don't eat plants. Well, you eat things that eat plants, and bees help make those plants grow. So really, if bees go away, it is a pretty catastrophic thing for our food supply chain. So we have got our honey straining right here out of our slinger down into some buckets. We've got a fine stainless steel strainer. We've got a coarse stainless steel strainer. Actually, those are opposite. We've got the coarse, and then it flows down into the fine, and then it goes into a plastic 200 mesh strainer. So this is being triple strained. We actually don't filter our honey. I don't know if I've misspoke that earlier in this video, but we strain our honey. We try to leave good things in there, but there's a fine line, and that is the whole gist of this video. That's the thing that we've looked into, that we are finding we are going to have to kind of modify our practices and change. We were leaving too much pollen, or you might call debris. It's not really debris like trash that you might think of, but all those things that get left in honey are the things that are good for you, but there's a fine line because we were leaving too many and causing our honey to crystallize pretty quickly. It's an easy fix. You can slightly warm it and get it back to more of a liquefied honey state, but you have to be very careful, because if you're going for raw honey for health properties, you don't want to just boil your honey and kill everything. You're kind of defeating the purpose. So we don't want to be, facing that again. We want it to just come out of here, be strained, be 100% raw, and be bottled and go to people's homes and stay that way. So I want to encourage you, if you're having this trouble, look at your straining system. How fine of a strainer are you using? You might want to try a finer strainer till you find that right balance for you that keeps your honey, in its best state and not crystallizing. That's what we're giving a go, and we really think that is going to work this summer. So that's where we are. The honey is looking gorgeous. Yeah, we've already done almost 3 supers down here. We've got 5 more to go. We've done way more than that before, but we are in probably the wettest spring, early summer, maybe that I can ever remember. We're still trying to get our first cutting of hay done, which is wild. We should have been done before now, and we should be having the second cutting growing. Everyone here is in the same boat, if you will, but that's also affecting the honey. It's affecting everything. So here we are. We didn't get as much, honey harvested because it's not capped, but that's where we are. We're trying to do the best we can with what we do have. And so that's modifying our straining system. I hope that that helps you guys out, and that's something you might could look at if you're having the same problem and your honey's crystallizing pretty quickly. It just eventually does happen usually, but it's never happened as quickly as it has started happening to us. So that's why we're trying some different things. Let me just also throw in, it has to do with the sugar content of the nectar they're gathering. Because so you can do everything that you can do everything right, and it might still crystallize on you. Sometimes, I mean, you're dealing with nature, you're dealing with animals, insects. It's just, there's a whole lot of factors here. So if yours is still crystallizing, you've done everything, don't be too hard on yourself. It's still very good. It's still a very awesome superfood. Look into ways to decrystallize it. Just use it as it is. It's still very good. When you put it in things and it kind of warms up just slightly, it still works beautifully. So there's so much you can do. Make creamed honey, whatever the case may be. I will catch you guys later. Hope something on this video helped you. Got to get back to running the slinger. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and God bless.
So I don't like running 10 frames. I actually do have 10 in this one. But when you get them in there and they start gluing everything together, there's no room to work. So generally speaking, I try to run 9 frames in a 10 frame box. It just makes getting the frames out, even with the bees down in the deeps. I like running 9 down there. That way if I need to pull out a middle one, I'm not worried about hurting the queen.
And it looks like it tears your frames up trying to get them apart.
You can.